Fade in on the Knight Rider, narrating himself into existence. Ooh, I think I have audio. Fade in on the Knight Rider. Oh, narrating himself into existence. Look at that. Ooh, I think I have audio. Fade in on the Knight Rider. Oh no. One of these days, I'm going to do this without audio problems. And that's going to be an experience. Hello, all. Welcome to the Knight Rider. Classically, I'm going to start off each episode not remembering how I set up my audio and how to make it work. I know you can hear me now, but I was doing a little bit of an echo. I forgot to send the audio through my ear cannons here, which is literally the only reason why I have these on. But okay, so the Knight Rider. We're here to design a role-playing game live and on the air. If you haven't joined us, this is episode 8. There are 7 more hours of this that you can go back through, but we'll get you caught up. It's not gonna take long. I mean, if you want to go back through them, fine. Go back through them, like them, subscribe, all that business. But right now, you don't have to pause this and go back. That's fine. Well, let's get started here. Where was I? Let me see here. We're probably somewhere in here. So, the role-playing game we're making is about the incredible interchangeable Intergalaxians, a toy from the 70s and early 80s that you probably don't remember because it never existed. We have this entire imaginary timeline that we have built around the toy and its various media things. Basically, I've designed a thing for me to be nostalgic for that never existed, and then gave myself the IP to make the tabletop role-playing game, because you can do that when you play pretend. And the concept behind the toy is little plastic figures, very simple, solid color, molded plastic figures that their arms come off, their heads come off, their lower body comes off, and there's the torso that remains. And those are interchangeable. That's the interchangeable part. The incredible part is because you have to hype up your toys. And then that's basically what the toy was. A bunch of weird space alien things made of different arms and legs and heads and whatnot, inspired by the Micronauts, inspired by ROM, inspired by Muscles, if you remember Muscles, deeply inspired by Muscles. Actually, we made a swerve somewhere around episode 5 or 6 where we went in that direction. The idea was that kids would buy them either as completed figures, like in sets of 3 that had names. These were like the iconic figures, or in cheaply molded like space torpedoes, rocket ships, just filled with parts, and you would not know what you're getting. You would open them up and you would be able to swap with friends and whatnot. And then the comic book came along and added story to this. And the story that the first comic book in the 80s did was sort of like these were ancient space warriors who were stuck in their space capsules and then launched at enemy ships where they were supposed to attach themselves and maybe drill through the hull and take over the ship. And that was like how battles were fought. And of course, not every shot you take hits. Some of them miss. So you got these space knights flying through the cosmos on missed shots forever and ever, like for millennia, until they land somewhere. And now the story in the comic book takes place many thousands of years after that battle, when the civilizations that gave rise to the Intergalaxians have disappeared. And the Intergalaxians that we see are the only ones that are left. They're going around trying to collect their bodies together, or that they have their bodies together and just trying to find other Intergalaxians. There's a whole universe full of aliens that aren't Intergalaxians that may not even remember what they're even about, for them to interact with. The Intergalaxians are considered rare in the universe. They're vaguely immortal, and except they can be blown apart, and these different pieces can be spread about and whatnot. I'm trying to think what else needs to be said to bring everyone up to date. We have a 80s cartoon, which is like a little bit more the same thing, but like a little bit more of a kid-friendly version. The 80s comic would have been kid-friendly, but also kind of, I don't want to say mature or adult in like a rated R sense, but like definitely like a PG-13 style storyline or whatever. That's just how the comics worked back then. They were trying to appeal both to kids and adults at the same time. But the 80s cartoon definitely just needed to appeal to kids. There's like morals at the end of them and whatnot. And then it disappeared for a while. And then in the 90s, some imprint of one of the big major comic publishers did a very edgy reboot of it called I for Intergalaxian, because they thought the word Intergalaxian was really ridiculous. This whole 90s, gritty, edgy 90s reboot thing is a very important part of my history, but also I find it hysterical, so I make fun of the edgy reboot, which never existed again. And then finally, well, not finally, but like in the mid-aughts, there was these toys would have come solid plastic colors, a variety of different plastic colors, but they'd all been very bright colors and sometimes pastel and glow in the dark and maybe see-through or whatever. But this lended itself to a pastel cartoon reboot, which was definitely, the one where they, it still had like the same feel as the early one, but like obviously, it's basically the one that's going to make the delicate sensibilities of their aggressive fans trigger those. So basically the She-Ra reboot of this particular one, and I'd like to build a game. This is the maybe the most ambitious part of this, is I'd like to build a game that will allow you to play in any of this way. So we have a lot that we've kind of made so far. You can go check out the GitHub that has like all of this material on there. I'm not going to go through it all now because I've gone through it over and over again each week. Not that I'm complaining. I actually enjoy it. It's a nice refresher to put myself back into the whole how everything is happening. Let's see here. But what I want to do, last time we were talking about kind of putting together what rolling looks like. More specifically, we were figuring out how these different interchangeable parts might affect it. The idea was it would be fun to make fun to make characters out of having these different parts to put together, just like you would if you had the toy. And then you could basically, like, each part can bring a little something to the character. It could be like a little mechanical bonus. It could be a little like a fictional flourish. Originally the idea for the parts was that they were these like artisan built, like, nobody knows how to make them anymore. But when we kind of swerved into the muscle territory, it also made kind of was kind of fun if somebody's like lower torso, their bottom part was a garbage can that shot fire out of the bottom, So maybe that whole bit isn't going to hold. But some of these parts might have very important names. They might have once belonged to someone else that you now have, and they carry a bit of that personality with them. All of that. So there's a lot to have there, but we don't have an actual mechanic to hang it on. And what I kind of wanted to do tonight is just dive into talking about dice and how dice work and the dice feel of a game. So let's see where I am. I'm just going through here trying to figure out if what we built here. Sorry if I'm scrolling fast. So where we last left it, we were just hanging the game on a Apocalypse World hack because, as I stated before, it makes for a nice jumping off point for what I want to do here. I'd like what these different interchangeable parts bring. I'd like it to be something a little orthogonal to just a bonus to hit, or a bonus to see things far away if you have binocular eyes. Or I have a very dry throat tonight, so I'm going to be drinking some. And with Apocalypse World, you can do a lot of things with the move result, right? Like some of them could add good things to different parts of the move. And so what we did is we kind of split up moves into 3 distinct parts. The dueling moves are when you're... All right, so we made 3 different categories of moves that each part would bring a certain something to each one of those categories. You had the dueling moves, which were when the Intergalaxians face each other, or threats that are on the same level as an Intergalaxian, because it might be, some other force out there that's just as powerful. Like, I don't want to say powerful. We're going to play a little fast and loose with like things like how powerful people are and whatnot, because I don't want to get too much into the weeds there, but maybe we'll end up doing that. Okay, so you have the dueling moves, which are when you're dealing with things that are at least on par with the Intergalaxians. You have the action moves, which are kind of like if you're running around, or maybe you're fighting off a bunch of like alien robots or something like that. Things that aren't necessarily at the Intergalaxian level, even though they may pose a serious threat. And then the respite moves, which are the things we would kind of cover in broad strokes, or a montage style of play. Things like, what you're doing on your downtime, or how you get from here to there. I think we did talk about, I think the respite moves might have been the one that really kind of hit for me. Yeah, because we were also working out trying to head, arms, torso, lower body. I guess that's what I'm falling into calling them, but we're going to come up with some better words for them. And right now, sensor unit, which is the head, right? That gives you an idea of what your head is going to be doing for you. And the respite move for the head might be something modeled on the discovery phase of Swords Without Master, where you have to show us something that you either know or are currently witnessing about the world. Whereas the respite move for the sinister actuator, the left arm, has something to do with how you're taking care of the equipment. The respite move for your Dexter actuator might have to do with training or games or something like that. All of this is very up in the air. I think I've stated early on, I write these things in what I call the litany of lies, which is everything I write here is a lie until we do something to make it true, until we make it true through our will. Anyways, so I would like to... I'm not doing a very great job of organizing all this, but let's just go to the bottom here. Dice rolling, question mark. Think that. Oh, we were already doing something about dice from a while ago. What were we going to? Well, this is why we take notes, right? This is it's like turning around in a maze and finding your past self ready to fight you. Oh yeah, I wanted to use all the dice. I wonder if that's a smart idea. All right. This was a lie that I don't think I'm gonna follow anymore, but maybe we will. Let me just. I'm not gonna delete it. Just gonna go ahead and comment it out. Make it disappear for a little bit here. So I don't know what I'm going to do going forward here, but I'm going to just kind of talk out loud about some of the more interesting die rolling. This is die rolling. I don't want to say it's independent of the rest of the resolution mechanic because it's never independent. But there are nice qualities to die roll that we can examine and then decide, like, what does this inspire in a resolution mechanic, or what, how can we best put this to use. And when I say die roll, I'm being as generic as I possibly can. It might be cards, of course, could be Jenga. I've heard of that being done. It could be whatever. And I should shout out to the chat at this moment if you have like any suggestions or anything for dice rolling things that you think are neat or would like to shout out to. Go for it. I'm just going to start listing some. One of my favorite ones is there's a Doctor Who role-playing game called Time Lords. It's not that there's a couple role-playing games called Time Lords. One of them is a Doctor Who one. It was published, I want to say, in the late 90s. It was all in one book. I'm glancing around the room to see if I have it at hand so I can show it to you. And at some point I'm going to have to alphabetize these. But the way this die rolling worked was that you would roll 2d6 and subtract the lower roll from the higher one. This would give you a result. Just gonna do that. Let's see if that works. It would give you a result between 0 and 5, but the result doesn't quite work out that way. It does work out that way, but like you have a 1 in 6 chance of getting a 0, and then you have a better chance of getting a 1, and then you're back down to a 1 in 6 chance for a 2, and then you have a worse chance for a 3, and then worse for 4, and then worse for 5. So it has this, if I had a better, let me see if I can do this with text graphics here. Can I do this? This is gonna be weird. All right, so 0, and then 0, and then it's gonna do the autocomplete thing. I don't like that. This is where we're just gonna sit and watch Eppy try and make ASCII graphics. It's a thrilling adventure. Yeah, we're getting there. Now, the slope on this is far more drastic than it needs to be, but All right, well, something along those lines. And I did this as a line graph, as if this is a thing that happens over time. I should not have done that. This is bad. This is a bad graphic. I apologize. Imagine these are columns with shapes underneath them instead. Oh, hey, we can do that. We can definitely do that. Let's... Let's... Nope. All right. All right. We can do it this way. This is no problem. You know what? I know exactly what this calls for. How's it going? This is I'm so sorry to put everyone through this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There we go. And what do we got here for the, I think it's 8. Then, all right, so there's 36 total. It's 12, that's 20. So, is it like, oh no, that would have been 3s. There we go. Oh, yeah, that is a bad thing. There you go. Something like that. It's a bar chart, right? Okay, so this, I like this a lot because the way it keeps like the rolls low, and the 5 is like a kind of an exciting, critical success or whatever. It's a nice thing, but that most of them are like on your level or just one above. If you've ever played Wolfspell, this may look familiar because this is the mechanic I borrowed to use for the rolling in Wolfspell. And I'm kind of tempted to do something else with this here as well. In Wolfspell, the 2 6-sided dice you roll are representative of the 2 different sides of your personality. One is you're in Wolfspell. You play adventurers who turn yourselves into wolves in order to complete some quest, and your adventure side and your wolf side are always kind of at odds with each other. And so you have one wolf die and one blood die, and the higher of the 2 determines who's in control. And the distance between them, which is this number here, that it is how successful you are at being that part of you, your adventurer side or your wolf side. And sorry, I disappeared there. So that I think works. It certainly works for Wolfspell, and there might be something to that. Like, there might be something to do with like a regular 6-sided die that's used to be just your intergalaxian, and then another one is your interchangeable part, whichever one you happen to be using. And if it's higher, you get a special bonus for it. Or, anyways, we're just kind of spitballing here. But that is one thing that I had been thinking about going into this. I know. I'm gonna check out chat. I have not. I'm sorry. I haven't been paying attention to chat, and I should. Blizamo into Wowie. Yes, my dream scenario is some toy manufacturer picks up this IP for this game. I mean, yeah, if you are a toy manufacturer and you would like, let's talk. Okay. Sinbad EVE says, I mean, actual toy bits shaken and tossed like bones. That's interesting. Like, I mean, obviously I'm not going to be able to produce these actual toys, but I mean, there's, you've got the, so let's look at that. Let's say, like a drop map, right? I'm going to label this up here. So it's not just all... Yeah, I'm gonna call it the wolf spell option because I want to remember to use the two different sides. So yeah, like if you had like a little okay, all right. So there's a toy. There's a toy I had when I was a kid. I think it might have been called Monster Factory. It was these plastic plates that I think there were three of them. They're interlocking, and one was this is going to sound really familiar. One plastic plate was the head of a monster. Another one was the torso with its arms and wings or whatever came out of its shoulders, and then the third one was the lower body. And it was like a lot of. I remember there's like a Gilman, like from Creature from the Black Lagoon. There may have been a Frankenstein. I'm trying to remember what all the monsters were. But you could. The idea was that you could mix and match them, and you would put a piece of paper on them, and you'd rub them with a crayon, and you would get the outline of this thing. And then the backside had textures that you can rub with another crayon, and like kind of add textures to your like scales or whatever. I know they also made like another version of this that was like a all about fashion, like dresses and shirts and whatnot, hats and but okay, so the crayon rubbing one, yes. So what made me think of that is that if you do a drop map, you have like a little thing that you can print out, trace, do whatever that is just made up of the shapes of your toy, and then you drop dice on them, and they land where they land will tell you like something, right? There's some sort of interpretive value there that would be really great, because then every character has a bespoke drop map, which I mean, that's kind of fun, especially if it's made out of the different parts that you have on your character. Sinbad EV. Yeah, toss 5 bits designated do jobby parts. Yeah, and they land in spaces. Impacts. Yeah. And I mean, like, you could do it. Like, I'm talking about, I think the inverse of that, where you're dropping it on an image of the toy rather than dropping the toys on maybe a target with different spaces planned out for successes. I mean, either one of these would really work, and they're so. It's just kind of a very juicy idea. I'm just gonna write down some notes about that. Let me do this. All right, so. Oh, I might have set it up for this. Let's see. I'll go and change that later. Okay, so I mean, this leads into some possibilities when it comes to like Cyrun, the other kind dice kind of things, where you have dice that you roll and assign to things. But okay, so imagine having a die to. You're going to do something, right? And let's give ourselves a thing to do here. There is a mountaintop that is sliding down on a into a valley where there is a whole village of nerf herders. uh, and You see that happening. You see there's you see the explosion from like some stray missile from maybe the battle that you were involved in. Nothing you shot, maybe something your opponent shot, and it hits that mountaintop, and you have to go stop it. So you kick in your afterburners. Your lower body is made up of if it's a mountaintop, let's make it made up of a single giant foot attached to a snowboard. It'd be a surfboard. I don't think they had snowboards in the 70s. Well, maybe you're from the reboots. That's fine. And you want to get there in time. So it might be fun to have a negotiation with your as you're sliding through this mountain here, have a negotiation with your GM to be like, okay, like I'm going to throw a D8 because that's what comes with my footboard. And when it comes to moving on anything that is water, whether it's snow or ice or water itself or cloud vapors. And so I'm going to throw a D8. That's going to be my success die. If I get 3 or more, I get a success. All right, that's fine. But then the GM says something like, well, it's dangerous. So here's a die, here's a D4. I don't want to see this go wrong. So here's a D4, and this is to like, if something bad might happen to the village while you're trying to do it. But here's another like D6 because you're leaving combat, and here's another, and you're throwing all those dice. They have to be different sizes or different colors. It might get complex, actually. I might be splashing out too big here. But still, I think there's something fun to be had by having like, maybe 2 or 3 dice to roll, and the results of them are help determine what's happening, and then where they land is also going to be helpful. That gives us another sort of vector to make these parts mechanically meaningful. That's different than what we were talking about before, where we were just adding them to the way, the options you had available if you succeeded or failed the roll. I really like this drop map idea. I making no promises, but this is definitely a thing that I want to kind of explore further. But let's move on for a moment. Let's try out something else. Let's see. Other nifty ideas that I have wanted to work with. I've not really done anything with cards. I keep trying to do stuff with cards. I did one for like a contest or a game jam that was like a poker hand, and it was Space Knight related. I think it's still on my website, so if you go there and look for the Space Knights, it's certainly in the same theme of what we're doing here. I don't think it would actually work for what we're doing, but there's something about trick-taking games, in particular, like ones like Whist or Bridge, or if you've played, I'm blanking on the name of it. It's like, is it The Crew? I think that's what it's a newer one that's like you're the crew of a spaceship, and you're not trying to beat each other in the trick taking game. You're getting like missions that are like qualifications, like someone should take so many tricks, or someone should take the trick with this card in it, or that kind of thing. And so you're all trying to work together without verbally communicating to make that happen. And it's a very tense and satisfying game. And there's something about trick taking games when it comes to teamwork that I think is very interesting. Now, that gets into a little bit about like, what are we doing here with these intergalaxians? Are they a bunch of lone wolves out there doing their thing, kind of away from each other, and or are they like an adventuring party? And I mean, I'm going to be honest with you, I'm more tempted by the adventuring party bit. I think that well, I mean, I can even make excuses for it. I can say the 80s cartoon, at the very least, it had to been adventuring party style. I mean, it would have been like the same 6 intergalaxians as the heroes each time, so that the kids would remember them. But even 6 is probably an aggressive number. How many Thundercats were there? That number. How many Silverhawks? That number. But the well, anyways, I think a trick taking card game mechanic might be interesting. I think would be very interesting for like an adventuring party style game. I don't know if it's particularly well suited to this game, although again, there's definitely themes we can see. You can certainly tie maybe the color of the plastic that molded the part that you're using to a suit, or the parts themselves. That gives us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 suits to work with. Yes, the crew. Hanabi, yeah, that's another one. Those are fun. And I mean, this is also kind of a problem with the trick taking game, is that I don't want to stop people from talking to each other, and I don't want to. Those games work off of the idea that you're not allowed to talk about the specifics of what's happening. So that might not particularly work, but still, there's things there. Rage is another trick-taking game that I absolutely love. I'm just mentioning that one because I love it. I don't think it's a particularly good fit for this, but all right. So I'm going to put a question mark here because I don't have a well thought out idea for how to do this as a trick-taking game. A part of it is that those games tend to be really tightly balanced, and that is going to be hard, or at least they appear that way to me, and I think that might be a little difficult to do with all of the options that we have laying about. I think it would be really easy to tune that game and then, introduce all the different interchangeable parts and things, and then suddenly just realize that you have no control over, or not no control, but like there's no peril. Like people they're just able to, they have enough options to just choose the option to get through it and survive it. It would be a difficult thing, but it is something that I'm going to write that down. Might be. All right. There's spinners. We could go the Bullwinkle and Rocky. I think I've pulled that out in a previous episode. There are cards in the Bullwinkle and Rocky that yeah, I think in a previous episode I kind of went deep into this. I don't want to repeat myself too much. There's things, okay, with rolling dice in general, there's different things we could do where, you know, you're trying to see how many dice are over a particular number or adding dice up. There's a certain joy to rolling a mitt full of dice and adding them all up to see if got more than your opponent. It's a thing that I enjoyed way back in the early days when we were playing Tunnels and Trolls. But the fun thing about that is that, like, the more dice that go in, the less randomness comes out of it. But it feels like there's more at stake and it's more risky. So yeah, but I don't know if I want this to be a big die, like I don't know, a big mitt full of dice thing. You don't see it. As I'm thinking, I'm staring over the top of my computer screen, and on the far wall, there is a claw machine that Emily and I picked up at one point. I think in particular because we were gonna put a bunch of dice in there and just play with it that way. Like it was a cheap one that you get, like we got it at like a convenience store or something. We just saw it and picked it up on an impulse. And I just keep looking at it every time I'm trying to think of a dice mechanic, and then remind myself that I don't want to incorporate a claw machine into the claw machine. The kind where you operate where it goes and then it drops down and see if it picks something up. It's a bad idea, so I got to stop looking at it. All right, let's see here. Cards have other things that are interesting. Like we said before, the suits and whatnot. There's a little bit of like there's some fun things you could do where you pre-program what you're going to do, like lay down the cards in the order that you're going to do them. That might have some entertaining things, but there's no real theme here that fits with the Intergalaxians. They're not like robots, for example, or I mean that would work pretty nicely with like a where if your battles were kind of chess-like or whatever, where you have to think ahead a little bit and you have limited resources. I like how Castle Falkenstein did their duels using that with I'm trying to remember exactly how it works, but you'd have some cards that represented an attack and some cards representing a defense and then some cards representing a rest, and you had to do a certain number of rests in you do like 2 cards at a time, and I think you do like 3 volleys, and in that, like, a certain number of your cards have to be rests, depending on like the better you are, the less number of rests you have to play during that time. I vaguely remember it being pretty overpowering if somebody was like a level or 2 higher than someone else. But anyways, the idea is very neat. I really, really dig that. Dan Marishek says, with cards, maybe something about laying out an array, 1 card for a head, 1 for torso, 1 for... Yeah, like that's definitely a possibility. There's a lot of different, like, vectors for representing the interchangeable parts. And at some point, I'm going to have to, like, settle down with one of them and say, this is how we're going to do it. And I think that is definitely like one of them. You can have like, it's not that I mean, you could definitely have cards that are the interchangeable parts. That was the thing that we talked about a few episodes back. Or you could just be like, these, these are the arm cards. You you could be dealt like a hand of like 5 of them, with each interchangeable part being a suit, and then you can be like, uh, oh, okay, hold on, wait, good, we're talking into myself into it here. Let's see here, um, cards again. All right, so each suit is based on an interchangeable part. You're dealt, say, 5 cards, right? There are 5 suits. No, we probably want, let's say, 7 cards. You can play one of each suit, right? So this gets a little into deck building, even. Like, so you'd be dealt out the cards. They will have some information on them. Maybe they'll have information that relates to the moves, and whatnot. But they'll also probably just be like a indicator of whether you succeed or not. Whether that's like a number you total up, or numbers that you look at and compare to another number. Too many variables right now. But the point is that you would, if you can get a hand that has one of each suit in it, then you can play out all 5 of them, and that would increase your odds. But maybe some of those come with drawbacks or something like that. And if you can't get a hand with all 5 suits in it, then maybe you can play out flushes, right? Maybe you can, if you can't get all 5 suits in it, maybe you can play out all the cards you have of a single suit, which would be kind of interesting. So you have a drill for an arm, and you have three you drill for your sinister actuator, and then you have 3 sinister actuator suits. You might be able to play 3 cards of that suit. You might be able to play those 3 and add them together, or maybe all of the values on the cards are pretty low, and if the values are like 1, 2, and 3, you could be like, you can either play all of the suit and add them together, or you could play one of each suit and multiply them. That might be a thing. Huh. I'm going to write that down. And you wouldn't need like all 5 suits to do it. Like, you might find yourself in a position where you're trying to decide if you want to play out. You only have 2 different suits, so you're going to pick a card from each of those suits, and maybe you have a 2 and a 3, so that adds up to 6. But then let's say you actually have a 2, 2, and a 3 of one of your suits. So you could have gone 7 if you went with all of them. There are ways that we can make it so that you're making tactical decisions either way. Maybe you refill your hand afterwards, so somebody might be building towards having one of each suit, or building towards having like I really want to use that drill arm, so I'm just going to start collecting as many of the drill arm as I can get, and then when the time comes, I'm going to drop 5 drill arms, and people are going to see you know, a 12 attack or whatever. I think that has some merit there. There's something interesting to be done there. And like I said, could involve deck building, which is fun, but also a lot of work. It's hard to just pick that up. Yeah, all right. Grooving on this. I gotta say, my mind keeps going back to that drop map, though. I think because I associated it with that crayon rubbing. I think it's called Monster Factory. We're gonna have to look that up at some point. I'll share that on Twitter when I figure out what it is. It would be fun. This is one of those things where I would be really keen to hire a bunch of different artists to draw different parts, like the interchangeables, and not or have them draw intergalaxians and then just cut them up in a graphics program, or just give people. There's 5 of them, so you have like a. Wouldn't be a hexagon. It wouldn't be a pentagon because. Oh, maybe. All right, so Sinbad EV says a multi-part card set like sensor, torso, mobility unit, 2 actuators. You have a balanced effort. If you do a single part card set, you have a risky effort. You can make your intergalaxian out of cards and then toss dice at them. Yeah. Yeah. This is good. This has been I've got no. This is part of game design where you sit in this spot where you have too many good ideas, and that actually is the opposite of momentum. That is too many forces pulling in too many different directions, which isn't like a bad thing. It's just you spin around until you find out where you're going to get shot out. You ride the carousel. Until you fall off, until you puke. Yeah, like the failure on a card could break the part. That's part of it. Is like not break the part, but remove it. Like that's I think going to be a very key component to this game is that you're going to lose your parts from time to time. You might be able to get them back. Somebody might steal them and run with them, and you have to go and find them. But you'll at least be able to replace them. You might voluntarily do it from time to time if you get a part that you're like, this works better. Or I think we talked a little while ago that it might be fun to have situations where the part would maybe all the parts of the same color or all the parts of the same theme. You start building them up. I do want the parts you start off with be kind of built a little bit on the random side. So cards help there, but we could easily make die rolling charts for them and whatnot. But and then as you play, you start building yourself. Either you become very comfortable with that, with what you started off with, or you start, building the intergalaxian you want to be, to kind of map how I would think this game would, how I would have interacted with the toys as a kid. Like I would have like this, the first one I would get, I would think of as the best, and I'd really want that. But then as I buy new sets of interchangeable parts, I would start trying them out with different parts, and I'd get start to feel guilty about the fact that I like the other part. I want that to happen. I want to get into that. Um, yeah. All right. I'm not saying anything specifically here, but I keep aiming straight at that drop map. So I think it'd just be fun to model that on that monster maker. So now I'm gonna have to go look that up and share that. I think we're approaching the end here, though. So I want to thank chat for being. Oh, we got something. Speaking of chat, maybe the party has cards chosen and distributed randomly, and you can find new parts or swap parts, but you can only equip them if a part is knocked off. Yeah, I mean, that is something to actually think about. Like, what are the chances of an intergalaxian voluntarily removing a part? I know from my own personal, like, there are some games in which making characters is a lot of fun. And quite often in those games, I will play a character for a while, and then I will be riskier and riskier with the character because I'm an awful person and looking for that character to die so that I can make another character. And that might be a fun thing to kind of put into this, where it's like, all right, you've got this part. You can't voluntarily take it off, but you can keep putting yourself in the kind of peril where you are going to lose your mobility unit and replace it with the, fishtail that you found. But then, now that I mentioned fishtail, it also would have probably been something that the cartoon just did all the time, right? You would just swap your parts all the time because you would want the kids to buy more parts. You wouldn't want to prevent that. So thinking about it in the alibi of the IP of this toy, there's interesting ways to go there. But I think there's one clear way. I may have talked myself out of it. The Mighty Men and Monster Maker. That is exactly it. That is the thing, the crayon rubbing thing. Thank you, Blasmo into Wowie. Wow, I'm having a lot of trouble with your name there. I apologize. Yeah, that is exactly. Go Google that and enjoy because it is glorious. It is a little chunk of my childhood. All right, I'm going to do the outro stuff here. Hopefully, let's see here. My name is Eppy Ravishaw. That is... Oh. Let me make this a little bigger here. That's me. You can find me on Twitter at Eppy. That's easy enough. You can find me if you're on Mastodon, Dice Camp. I don't remember how you have to formulate that, but Dice Camp is the instance that I'm on, and I'm at Eppy there. You can see my website. I'm working on a ground up rebuild of that website, so there's nothing new on it. I don't think there's ever been anything new on it since COVID. So I don't know. Anyways, you can go through the old stuff if you want, though. You can find that Space Knights card game somewhere in there, the poker based one. It's kind of some neat things in it. Everyone had to build you actually built the cards that you were going to play with. Like, there were set suits, but then I think you had to write things on it, or you had to pick from lists and assemble things for each of the cards. I'll go back and look at it. I can't remember how it all works. If you want some sword and sorcery, action and fiction, worldswithoutmaster.com is where you want to be. That is where all my sword and sorcery games and my fiction is, along with sword and sorcery games and fictions from other fine creators and plenty of good art. I feel like I'm missing out on something. I should... Let me see here. I don't know if putting the GitHub up here is going to be helpful to anyone, but let me go ahead and copy and paste that for you. Oh. There you go. If you go there, you can see all the stuff that we've done so far. And you can go back through the old versions if you know how to do Git. I'm learning Git, which is fun and exciting. And good version control stuff. I'm going to play around a bit with this drop map idea. I'm going to let that sit in my head for a bit, see if I can't sketch some things up. We might see some graphics that aren't ANSI graphics up here soon. Drop map's going to be interesting. I can't run any simulations of it except to actually roll them, so maybe I'll figure out how to set up a camera to watch some rolling sometime in the future. I don't depend on it. We'll see where we go with it, but yeah, that might be fun. Thank you so much for joining me, and I guess I hope to see you next time. This is turning out to be a thing that I'm gonna just keep doing. So now I'm going to babble at you while I try and figure out how to casually turn off the stream. Have a good night.